I'm not coming back. I've met someone better, and I've already moved your things into storage. My name is Victor Kessler, 54 years old, and I'm staring at my phone in the kitchen of our Rivergate condo at 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday. The overhead light casts long shadows across the marble countertop, and the hum of the refrigerator seems unusually loud in the stillness. As I hold the device in one hand, my other hand trembles slightly over a half-empty cup of cold coffee. 15 years of marriage distilled down to 2 sentences and a screenshot. The text itself is simple. No prefatory phrase, no I'm sorry. Just a screenshot of a bank transfer confirmation. $118,000, 0 cents, moved in a single sweep from our joint savings into her private account. That amount could have paid off our Rivergate mortgage or funded a comfortable year of early retirement. Instead, it now represents the full measure of her disdain. I lower my gaze to the gray ceramic mug. I finish the last of the bitter brew in one slow swallow, feeling its warmth slide down my throat as an ironic final comfort from a marriage gone cold. I think back over the months, the subtle shifts, the whispered phone calls that fell silent when I entered a room, the weekend getaways that stretched from Friday morning through Sunday night without explanation. Elena said they were just retreats with her yoga friends, escapes from the daily grind. But I noticed each one. I'm a forensic accountant. Noticing discrepancies, no matter how small, is what I do for a living. Missing receipts, phantom expenses, ghost transfers. Yet I said nothing, chalking it up to her busy schedule. Perhaps that was my first mistake. Or maybe my first mistake was believing someone who thought my life's work was merely spreadsheets and dull numbers. I hover on the edge of action. The kitchen's overhead light flickers. Propping the phone against a stack of mail on the counter, I open my laptop, the one she never knew existed. Its screen springs to life with 3 notifications from the security system of my offshore bank. Someone has tried to change the passwords on several accounts she would never dream existed. She's being thorough, ruthless, methodical. Part of me admires that. Another part feels betrayed. I set the laptop aside. 2 words come to mind as I thumb the keyboard. Good luck. And then, with a deep breath that feels like the first real inhalation in weeks, I place the phone to my ear and dial my brother's number. Michael, I say when he answers. His voice is groggy, but I hear the alert curiosity. Remember that contingency plan we discussed 5 years ago? A pause. Then, it's time. My words are calm, the opposite of the chaos roiling behind my own eyes. My adult children. Are you sure? She just made her move, I reply, and I hang up. Across from me on the wall hangs the wedding photo, the one frame that still includes both of us, arms wrapped around each other outside the stone facade of the chapel at Solace Grove. Everything else in our condo has been gradually replaced. New furniture, fresh rugs, a minimalist TV stand. But that photograph remains, silent testimony to better days. I should have seen it coming. I was 38 when I met Elena Bowman at the alumni gala for Midwestern State University. Freshly divorced from a brief first marriage, I was entirely consumed by my fledgling forensic practice. My days bled into nights as I chased ghost money through corporate accounts, and I liked it that way. Then she walked in. Elena was 34, vibrant, effervescent, ambitious. She moved through the reception hall like a beam of sunlight, in a flowing teal dress that complemented her bright smile. I remember being struck not so much by her beauty as by the ease with which she dominated every conversation. She didn't wait to be noticed. She simply was. When I introduced myself, leaning in politely as she sipped a glass of Chardonnay, she cocked her head and said, "I don't need to understand what you do, Victor. As long as you make enough for us to live well, I'm happy." Her tone was playful, but I sensed an undercurrent of testing. It was as if she were saying, "Prove your worth to me." A year later, when we married beneath a canopy of wildflowers on the lawn of Solace Grove's whitewashed chapel, I felt on top of the world. I financed her yoga studio completely from my savings. Her dream, she said. I signed the lease on a charming craftsman in the Oakview district as soon as she asked for a bigger house and better schools. When she eyed a convertible in the showroom one Saturday, I nodded and signed the papers without hesitation. My father had once warned me, pausing mid-hammer as we replaced a loose deckboard at his suburban home. "Son, I've noticed your wife's taste for expensive things. Make sure she values what you do to earn it." I laughed it off. I was young, in love, and headstrong. His words lodged in the back of my mind, but I convinced myself my money was hers, just as hers was mine. 6 years into the marriage, small doubts began to flicker at the edge of my consciousness. I reorganized a few personal accounts. Nothing illicit, just prudent asset protection. I created 2 limited liability companies, set up a trust for my aging parents, invested in cryptocurrency, and maintained an offshore escrow for a handful of international clients. Elena knew only of our joint account and the savings we used for bills. She never questioned the rest. Still, it was easy to ignore. She was building her brand as a fitness influencer. Her Instagram following rose steadily from the low hundreds to the high thousands. She traveled to retreats with her wellness community. At first, weekend trips to Suncrest, then full-week excursions to coastal resorts and mountain lodges. "You wouldn't enjoy it," she'd say with a shrug when I pressed. "It's all yoga talk and juice cleanses." I believed her. My work fascinated me, but it bored her. Last Christmas, I woke up on my birthday morning to find a box on the dresser. Inside was an expensive Swiss watch, an apology for forgetting entirely. "I've just been so busy expanding the studio," she'd texted later. The gift dazzled under the bedroom light, but it felt like a bribe. That night, I finalized the paperwork on what Michael and I had quietly termed the exit protocol. The hints of discontent had been there all along. I just didn't want to see the full picture. So on the morning after her text and screenshot, I made coffee as usual, the percolator's drip familiar and grounding. I logged into my custom financial management system, an adaptation of my law firm software, filled with widgets for personal use. With a few keystrokes, I activated the first stage of our contingency protocol. Step 1. Freeze all joint checking and savings accounts and deactivate every joint credit card. Step 2. File a fraud alert on the $118,000 0 cents transfer, personally calling in a favor with my banking contacts to expedite the hold. Step 3. Email my attorney, proof of unauthorized transfers, and instructions to immediately begin divorce proceedings. Then I called my mother. I said, "Ellen has left me. She took the money and moved my things out while she was supposedly on vacation." Her silence stretched for 3 heartbeats before she said, quietly, "I'm sorry, Victor, but I can't say I'm surprised. What are you going to do?" "Exactly what I've been preparing to do for years," I replied, my voice steady. "Protect what's mine." An hour later, my phone buzzed with Elena's name. I declined the call. 10 more calls followed, each one labeled urgent. Her last text read, "What the hell did you do? The money's gone and my cards don't work." I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the self-stack subscription facility whose address she'd included in the original message. The fluorescent lights glared as I entered the code she'd texted. Inside were 2 boxes labeled Victor, Clothes, and Laptop. I retrieved them while the automated lock clicked behind me. My winter coats, dress shirts, jeans, and the laptop I used for personal files. Family photographs, books gifted by my father, and other sentimental items, gone. Standing in the fluorescent aisle, something hardened in me. This was no longer only about money. It was about 15 years of life, love, and labor discarded without a second thought. It was about someone believing they could erase me from our shared history. At the nearby lakeside cafe, I sat in a corner with my laptop open. Accessing specialized financial databases reserved for licensed investigators, I pulled up every record I could find on Trey Harmon, the fitness influencer tagged in Elena's endless stream of photos. I recognized him vaguely from a sponsored post last month. As I scrolled, the data confirmed my suspicions. His gym business was at the brink of collapse. 3 maxed-out business credit cards, a commercial truck lease in default, and, most damning, a co-signed auto loan involving Elena 2 months earlier. I shut the laptop with a measured snap and checked out of the cafe, my mind clear for the first time in weeks. Monday at 9 a.m., I would walk into my office as if nothing had happened. The next morning, I slid into my leather chair at Kessler & Associates, the suite of offices overlooking the riverfront. My assistant, Valerie, looked up mid-typing. "Victor, I thought you might be taking time off." I raised an eyebrow. Did she call here? 3 times already, Valerie said, frowning at her screen. Says there's been a misunderstanding with your accounts and she needs to reach you urgently. If she calls again, tell her to contact my attorney, I replied. By noon, Elena had escalated from frantic phone calls to a physical appearance. The receptionist buzzed me. Your wife is here. She's insistent. I sighed and walked to the lobby. There she stood, designer sunglasses perched on her head, matching yoga wear ensemble, hair perfectly tousled. Her lips curved into that practiced smile she reserved for getting her way. Victor, she said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. There's been a huge misunderstanding at the bank. All our accounts are frozen. Not a misunderstanding, I said quietly. You transferred $118,000, 0 cents, without authorization. The bank flagged it as fraud. Her smile faltered. She crossed her arms. It was our joint account. I'm your wife. I fixed her with a calm gaze. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife who emptied our savings while informing me you'd moved out and found someone new. That's textbook financial misconduct. Her voice dropped to a hiss. You cannot do this to me. I've already put deposits down on a new place. I have commitments. To Trey Harmon, no doubt, I said softly. Her face turned pale. You investigated me? No. I protected myself from fraud, I replied, then turned and walked back upstairs. That afternoon, an email arrived from Elena's newly hired attorney. Subject line, immediate access to records demanded. Inside, vague threats to expose irregularities in my practice if I didn't comply. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a single note. Proceed as planned. By evening, mutual friends were calling, texting, and messaging, asking why I was being so vindictive and controlling. Not one asked where Elena had actually been for the last week, or what she'd done with the money she'd drained. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to Belmont Community Center, the local gym I'd used for years, long before Elena and Trey turned fitness into branded performance art. I lifted weights until my arms trembled and my shirt clung to my back with sweat. Then I drove to the hotel, where I'd stayed the night before, and fell into a deep, dream-filled sleep. 3 days later, my attorney called. We found something interesting, she said. I sat up. Elena's been siphoning money from our joint account for how long? Over a year, beginning with small transfers, 5-figure sums at first, then escalating. In total, almost $80,000, 0 cents went to her personal savings, and the rest, nearly $175,000, 0 cents, funneled into an LLC registered to Trey Harmon. So she used our own funds to bankroll his failing business. Yes, we can add financial infidelity and fraud to the divorce petition. I exhaled a long, mirthless sound. Betrayal always stings, even when you suspect it. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. You need to back off. Elena deserves better than you. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Trey Harmon playing the protective partner card, I smiled. Interesting thread. The next morning, I drove to Michael's house. He specializes in digital security and is the perfect complement to my financial expertise. He greeted me with a raised eyebrow. Public records only, right? Of course, I said, but fast. Give me 3 hours, he replied. He delivered. By mid-afternoon, I held bank statements, credit application forms, loan agreements, even utility bill records for Trey's gym, Harmon Fitness LLC, all publicly filed. All indicating deeper trouble, unpaid taxes, liens on equipment, and a $175,000 0-cent small business loan on which Trey and Elena had co-signed. That's standard, I said. Look at the clause, Michael said, pointing. Marital status used as collateral for better terms. He defaulted, so your assets are on the hook. I closed the folder and stood by the window, gazing at children playing in the yard next door, oblivious to adult machinations. Elena had no idea what she unleashed. I walked back into the office Monday ready for the next move. The trap is near closure, but it's not around me. I said finally, then neither does he. And with that, the die was cast. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the frosted glass of my home office in the Rivergate condo. Soft shards of gold cutting across the reclaimed wood desk where my laptop lay open. I smoothed my hands over the leather surface of an antique chair, feeling its worn grain beneath my fingertips as I dialed my attorney's direct line. My reflection in the window looked back at me. Haggard, but resolved. 15 years of life built on trust and routine had shattered like thin glass. Yet here I was, ready to gather the shards and begin anew. "Good morning, Rebecca," I said when she answered, her voice crisp with professional warmth. "I've laid out everything we uncovered. Elena's transfers, the forged signatures, Trey Harmon's defaulted loans. I want to move quickly before they have any chance to react." She paused, her pen scratching across a notepad. I could almost hear her scanning the stack of documents I'd emailed overnight. A moment later, she nodded. "Victor, we'll file for emergency asset protection today. The loan fraud alone gives us ample grounds to petition the court to freeze all contested accounts and collateral until the divorce is final." Relief and adrenaline coursed through me in equal measure. Rebecca's competence had been one of the few constants I could rely on. "Thank you," I said softly, already picturing the first legal filings going in that afternoon. That very afternoon, I drove through downtown Des Moines to Harmon Fitness, Trey's glossy new gym near the riverfront promenade. The building's facade was a gleaming curtain of tinted glass, emblazoned with Trey's grinning visage and bold lettering proclaiming Harmon Politics, a capital shout-out for VIP members, a courtesy he'd boasted about at a charity gala last year, and walked inside. The smell of disinfectant and sweat hit me immediately, mingling with the faint aroma of a custom charcoal latte from the smoothie bar. Motifs of "no excuses" and "earn it" were scrawled in oversized stenciled fonts across whitewashed walls. Mirrors lined an entire side of the weight room, reflecting the torsos of 20-somethings taking selfies, mid-lunge and flex. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in a dizzying chorus. I spotted Trey near the front desk, leaning against the counter as he signed an oversized check for a local youth sports sponsorship. He looked taller in person, his frame muscular but lean. Every inch the social media fitness idol. His tan had that telltale tell, a uniform shade that bespoke months of spray applications rather than natural sun. His white teeth were perfect in their symmetry, and his smile was wide and practiced. When our eyes met, he straightened and excused himself from the other staff. He strode over, hand extended. "Victor Kessler, I presume? Elena's mentioned you." I studied his outstretched hand for a heartbeat before leaving it unshaken. "I'm sure she has." He smiled, arm dropping to his side. "Glad you came in. I wanted to chat. If you have a minute?" "I do," I said. "Lead the way." Trey guided me through a side corridor to his office, a compact space enclosed by floor-to-ceiling glass walls. Out in the gym, everyone could see us. The walls were soundproof, though, a detail he must have noted when designing the space for private discussions. The hardwood floor gleamed under the recessed lighting, and a single leather chair faced his broad mahogany desk. He sat behind the desk, gesturing to the visitor's chair. His expression turned guarded. "What can I do for you?" I reached into my messenger bag and placed a manila folder on the desk, its flap neatly tucked in. "These are every financial document connecting you to Elena Bowman." My tone was flat, clinical. Trey's brow furrowed as he flipped through the pages. Business loan agreements, credit card applications, auto lease contracts, and notarized signatures. "I don't understand," he said after a moment, his voice low. "These are legitimate arrangements between my business and my fiancée." "Maybe," I replied, "but the banks approved them based on our combined assets. Assets Elena no longer has legal authority to pledge." I tapped the folder. "She used our marriage as collateral for your gym loans. Now that we're dissolving the marriage, those guarantees are invalid." His face went ashen. He looked up at me, breath catching. "So, you're telling me those equipment leases, the small business loan for the new treadmills, my vehicle lease, they'll all be called due?" "They will," I confirmed. "The bank will pull the plug soon." He closed the folder slowly. "What do you want, Victor?" "Nothing from you," I said, rising from the chair. "Just wanted you to know what's coming." I paused at the door and turned back. "One more thing. When Elena moved out, she packed up, along with clothes and her laptop, some things of sentimental value to me. My father's watch, the framed photographs. If you come across them, please return them." He stared at me, unease flickering in his eyes. "I'll see what I can do." He didn't offer to shake my hand this time. I nodded and left. As I passed back through the main gym, the motivational slogans looked suddenly hollow. That evening, I was back in my Rivergate condo when a courier knocked on the door. I signed for a medium-sized box addressed to me, no return address. Inside, swaddled in tissue, were the missing photographs. My wedding portrait from Solace Grove, an old snapshot of me fishing with my brother at our Northwoods cabin, and my father's battered silver pocket watch, engraved with his initials. No note, just the artifacts themselves, as though Trey had fulfilled an unspoken promise. Later that day, Rebecca's office rang. "Victor, the petition's been granted," she said briskly. "Emergency asset protection is now in effect. All joint accounts, credit lines, and collateral are frozen until further court order." I allowed myself a small exhale. The mechanics of the law moved slowly, but for once the gears were turning in my favor. Over the next 24 hours, my banking dashboard lit up with alerts. 17 unsuccessful login attempts by Elena on our joint account, 3 flagged inquiries on new credit lines using our Oakview District craftsman as collateral, a denial email for a personal loan application. As I scrolled, I realized she was running on desperation and anger. My phone buzzed. The caller ID read, Elena Bowman. I tapped to answer. Her voice cracked. "What have you done, Victor?" "The bank called in all of Trey's loans. They're seizing equipment tomorrow morning. I don't know how he's going to pay." I lowered the phone to my chest. "That's unfortunate," I said evenly. "This is vindictive," she spat. "You're destroying him just to get back at me." "I'm not destroying anyone," I replied. "I'm protecting myself from fraud. You used our marriage to secure his loans without my knowledge or consent." "That's illegal," she whispered, her defiance slipping into pleading. "We can work this out, Victor. Please. Come home, and we'll talk." I let out a soft laugh tinged with disbelief. "We can't. There's nothing left to talk about. The divorce will proceed, the fraud investigation will continue, Trey will learn an expensive lesson about due diligence." She went silent. I ended the call and blocked her number. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. 3 weeks later, I sat in the oak-paneled conference room of the Polk County Mediation Center. The table was long, gleaming, and unadorned, save for the pale blue pads of paper and watercrafts. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the tension in the room. Elena entered with her attorney, a sharp-featured woman in a navy pantsuit. Elena's hair was perfectly coiffed, makeup flawless. But the toll of sleepless nights showed in her tense shoulders, and the cigarette she desperately extinguished outside beforehand. Rebecca sat beside me, composed as ever. Across from her was the county-appointed mediator, clipboard in hand. Elena's attorney spoke first. "My client is prepared to be reasonable in the division of assets, despite the aggressive measures taken thus far." Rebecca inclined her head. "That's good to hear. Because yesterday, the bank concluded its fraud investigation." She slid a document across the table. "They've determined that Ms. Bowman forged Mr. Kessler's signature on multiple loan applications, leveraging their marital assets as security without his knowledge." Elena's attorney skimmed the report, her face paling. "We'll need time to review these findings." "Of course," Rebecca replied. "However, the bank has already referred the case to the district attorney's office. This mediation is a courtesy before criminal charges are filed." Elena's hand shot to her mouth. "Criminal charges? Victor, you can't be serious." I met her gaze steadily. "I didn't press charges. The bank did. According to state law." Her attorney leaned close, whispering. Elena shook her head, tears threatening. The mediator cleared his throat. "If Miss Bowman signs our proposed settlement today, my client is willing to submit a notarized statement to the bank, asserting that the theft of personal property and unauthorized transfers were misunderstandings rather than willful fraud. In exchange, they would refrain from pressing charges for those specific counts." The table fell silent. 15 years of a life together had led to this moment, and in that pause, I felt an odd pang of regret. Not for the path I'd chosen, but for the collapse of her carefully constructed illusions. I spoke quietly. "The settlement terms are fair. Ms. Bowman retains her yoga studio and personal vehicle. She receives no spousal support, and she assumes responsibility for all debts incurred using my name or assets. Mr. Harmon's obligations are his own." Elena raised her head. "What about Trey?" My attorney answered. "Mr. Harmon's liabilities remain with him. Without marital collateral, those loans will proceed through standard default and repossession channels. Elena placed her pen to the dotted line, signature shaking, then slid the document back. Rebecca and I signed in turn. The settling of paper felt anticlimactic. One more formality binding two broken halves. As we emerged into the late afternoon sunshine, Elena caught my arm. Her eyes were vacant, her voice a rasp. I never thought you'd fight back like this. You always went along with everything I wanted. That was my choice, I said softly. Just like this was yours. Then I let go and walked away, the sound of my own footsteps echoing down the corridor. A month later, I moved out of the Rivergate condo and into a modest craftsman house 2 blocks from downtown Des Moines. A property I'd discovered while reviewing real estate listings for potential rental income. Its brick porch had some mortar cracks, and the kitchen cabinets were dated, but it had good bones, as Rebecca put it. I hired Michael to help with renovations. One Saturday, he arrived with power tools and 2 cases of takeout pizza. As we measured for new cabinet hinges in the sunshine of the backyard, he paused and asked, "Heard anything from Elena?" Shook my head. "No, and I don't expect to." He draped a stud over his shoulder. "You could have taken everything. Fraud charges alone would have sunk her. Why didn't you?" I tapped a pencil against my chin. "What would be the point? She's no longer my problem." We lapsed into companionable silence, punctuated by the whir of drills and the thunk of nails. Later, as dusk painted the sky in shades of lavender, I thanked him, and he left for home. I lingered on the newly poured concrete pad in the backyard, imagining a fire pit and Adirondack chairs. That evening, I poured a glass of bourbon and sat on the porch swing. From the sidewalk, I heard a little girl calling for her dog. Somewhere, a neighbor's lawnmower hummed. The quiet neighborhood felt honest, far removed from the staged perfection of Oakview District and Rivergate's curated condo halls. I thought about the last 15 years, how I'd surrendered my sense of self to protect a marriage I believed in, how I'd noticed red flags yet chosen comfort over confrontation, and how when the time came, I'd already built the safeguards I needed. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I simply felt liberated. The next morning, I called my office. "I'm taking 2 weeks off," I told Valerie. She let out a cheer I'd nearly heard through the phone. "Enjoy it," I said. "We'll pick things up when I'm back." I packed my trusty pickup truck with camping gear, fishing rods, and a single duffel bag. I locked the front door with a sense of finality and stepped onto the street. The sun was rising behind me, illuminating the brick facades and leafy maples. I headed north on Interstate 35, the road stretching ahead to the Mississippi River and beyond. My destination was the Northwoods Cabin, our family retreat, where autumn leaves danced on the breeze and trout tumbled upstream just waiting for a fly line. No itinerary, no deadlines, just the open highway, gravel roads, and the whisper of pines. As the cityscape gave way to rolling farmland and gentle hills, I thumbed the radio dial through classic rock and country stations before settling on silence. The hum of tires on asphalt was enough. 15 years of ledgers and resentments lay far behind me now. Ahead lay fresh air, fishing waders, and campfire nights under a canopy of stars. For the first time in years, I balanced nothing in my mind. No invisible ledger of sorrows or betrayals demanding repayment. I exhaled, a real exhale, and let the open road carry me forward.